Any way that a child or an adult who has been a child is not seen and met and validated in their experience is experiencing some kind of distress. Yeah.
Wow.
Welcome to the Woman Up podcast. We are privileged to have Dr. Janet Williams, a highly respected counseling psychologist and the clinical lead of a pioneering trauma counseling program. Dr. Williams brings over 2 decades of experience in psychotherapy, enriched by her journey through motherhood and entrepreneurship before returning to her first love, therapy, in 2015. Her groundbreaking work focuses on perinatal professionals and young mothers grappling with the effects of adverse childhood experiences. Dr. Williams has developed a comprehensive approach that includes trauma-informed training, psychoeducation, and body awareness group sessions. Her doctoral thesis, What Happens When the Abused Child Becomes a Mother, provides deep insights into the psychosocial impacts of childhood trauma and offers strategies to empower mothers as they break the cycle of intergenerational trauma. Today, Dr. Williams is here to offer her profound insights and discuss the transformative impact of her work. Whether you're a healthcare professional, a parent, or simply someone interested in psychological healing and resilience, this conversation is bound to be enlightening. Join us as we welcome Dr. Janet Williams, a true pioneer in the field of trauma therapy and empowerment. You are watching Woman Up. I'm your host, your friend Natasha.
Welcome back to the Woman Up podcast, where we dive in deep into the stories of women who are making waves, breaking barriers, and shaping our world in their own unique ways. I'm your host, Natasha DG, and today we have a very special guest joining us, Dr. Janet Williams. Dr. Williams, welcome to Woman Up.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Lovely to be with you.
Thanks for coming and accepting the invitation. For people who do not know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, so I'm currently speaking to you from Belfast in Northern Ireland. So I am Dr. Janet Williams. I am a counselling psychologist, and I work for with a company that I founded called Malone Trauma Network. And so that's what I'm hoping to tell you about today. But I've been really interested in looking at your podcast and obviously anything to do with supporting women with their mental health and well-being. I just thought it would be really nice to be able to have a conversation with you.
Amazing. Can you tell us about your journey to psychotherapy and after running a family business, and what motivated you to return?
Well, so I trained as a therapist probably about 25 years ago. I've always been really interested in people and what makes them tick and how do they work and why they behave the way they do. So then when I had children and actually lived in Australia for 3 years, came back, did a family business, and then I just wanted to get back into psychotherapy at the time. So because it really is the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. So over the years, whenever I've been seeing clients and of all ages, but a lot of my work was with kind of teenagers in high school. I worked for high school counseling department for 4 years or so. And what I kept feeling was, if only we could get in there earlier, if only we could support these teenagers when they were, younger. And then I just kind of went, okay, how far back do we need to go? And ultimately that led to this sense of, well, really the mothers, and during the perinatal journey, just as they get pregnant right through to after the child is born, that is such a powerful time for a woman. And really what I feel and what I've learned through my research and the expertise is that it is such an opportunity for change, such an opportunity for healing, and also to be able to offer support, because that time women are particularly vulnerable. There's a lot going on with their bodies, obviously, and it can be re-triggering of old traumas and past hurts when they enter that period, because there's so much going on in their bodies. It's a new experience. There's relational things going on, feelings of how they feel in their bodies, and everything is happening on all levels. So that's when I started to feel, okay, that's the area that I really would like to focus in on with my research.
Dr. Williams, do you serve internationally?
Well, so it's a good question, Natasha, because the work that we do with the perinatal women is obviously local because it's funded by the local authority. But the program, the 10-week trauma program, I do online. So international, absolutely. And that is fee paying, obviously, because it's not funded by the local authority. But yeah, absolutely. If anyone is interested in finding out more, during COVID, we did it all online, obviously. So, and it worked. So, and it's, sometimes it's easier because people can be in their own homes and feel safe and secure in their own space. So yes, absolutely. International. That's what we want.
Would you say that your experience as a mother influenced your approach to counseling?
Oh, definitely. Because as a first time round, you really, well, unless you have a lot of siblings who have had children, I didn't have a clue what I was doing, really. I was 23 at the time and was just kind of, the learning curve was vertical. Now, kind of add to that, someone who is already feeling fragile because, they've had difficulties in relationships, or they've had things that are still alive, traumas from the past, whatever, then that really amps it up another level in terms of the vulnerability. So I just really felt this is, such an important time, and there's so much that can be done in this period to support women to feel empowered, to feel that they, they are able to understand themselves and be able to connect to their bodies in a way that they haven't before.
So how do you address trauma for specifically in your practice? How do you address trauma?
Yeah, so it's actually, it sounds, when we spoke, we had message exchanges. You said, you think working with trauma is heavy or intense or whatever, but it's actually really beautiful, and it can be very liberating and magical and empowering. And generally, I've found that it is. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, a famous book by Bessel van der Kolk. It's called The Body Keeps the Score.
I've heard about that.
Yeah. So that is the premise of working with trauma, because basically everything that's ever happened to you in your whole life is registered in and held in your body. So if there's anything that's unresolved, it will still be active and playing out in your life today. So the way that we do the trauma so Malone Trauma Network works with perinatal women during the pregnancy and then in the early stages of after they give birth. So say a woman has suffered some kind of abuse or neglect or something in the past, then as she is a grown woman, say she gets triggered by leaving the house, then we will work with what triggers her today. So we don't have to even go trawling through all the past experiences because it's still held in the body today. So then say, okay, leaving the house is the trigger. You would start at 0 and move towards that and say the trigger point is at 10. So at 0, how does it feel? Does anything come up for you with the idea of moving towards this trigger? And so at every stage of the way, you're noticing and observing what happens in the body, because there are distinct places where the trauma is held in the body. A lot of it's in the chest, the lungs, in the stomach, in the back, obviously, where the nervous system is, and across the shoulders and the upper back. And so there are certain areas where when we get triggered by anything or go into a level of distress, these will kick in. And so by spending time, it's quite intimate, really, just to be with what the body is presenting in those moments of challenge. And then when the body feels that it is being recognized, okay, you're listening. This is what I've been trying to show you for these years or whatever. And it really feels met. Then the body is willing to go, okay, I can let that go now. And so it really is a beautiful process of just going, yeah, let's be with feel those feelings. My corny saying is you have to feel it to heal it. So be with the body. And generally, some people might have a little bit of trepidation at the start, but after a while they get to see that by feeling the feelings or feel the feels, that actually it's not going to overwhelm you. Sometimes it can feel a little bit like a wave coming up. There might be a release, there might be tears, there might be some people yawn, and then there's this beautiful release in the body. Now, if you imagine doing that 10 times over 10 weeks, there's so much space that gets cleared in the body because you've let all of this go. And as you do that, then you feel more yourself, you feel more connected. The analogy, I love analogies, but I always say to clients, no matter who they are, on a cloudy day, does the sun still exist? And then, yeah, of course it does. So on a cloudy day, the sun is still there, which means, and how I connect it to them is the essence of who you are, the sun, is always there, and the clouds are the trauma. So if the trauma is obscuring the sun, it doesn't mean that the sun's not there. So if you work to release the trauma and disperse the clouds, then the sun can come through and filter through and then obviously shine brightly. And so that feels really encouraging for a lot of people, because then they see trauma as what has happened to them, but not who they are. And that's very, it's very joyful actually to connect to the sun and to feel like that's who you truly are. So it's beautiful. You can tell I love it.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you brought it. You're saying that people are kind of merging their identity with the trauma.
Yeah.
And I was curious to know, because trauma is something, I think it's a term that is used often, but concretely, can you give us not giving a scale, but can you give us examples of traumas from how low can it go and how severe can it be?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, there's a vast scale, and they talk about trauma with a big T and trauma with a little t. So you've got so many different types of trauma. So obviously you've got single event traumas, like a car crash, or, something that happens that puts your nervous system into overwhelm. So from a single event, which can be very kind of strong, intense and violent, right through to little, almost like micro traumas of, say, someone, for example, grows up and say something happens to the parents, they lose their job, maybe a loss of another child, and they're just emotionally unavailable. That lack of connection is also a version of trauma, but on a very kind of almost imperceptible way, but deeply felt. And so the accumulation of those little micro traumas are still a major effect, having a major effect on their lives. And so, there's so much, any way that a child or an adult who has been a child is not seen and met and validated in their experience is experiencing some kind of distress. Yeah.
Wow. I'm loving that you're saying that.
Yeah. So it is talked about more, as you say. Nowadays, it's definitely a very well-used term. And there's a lot of development in the field. There's a lot of development in neuroscience. And this is another part of why it's important to work with perinatal women. Because say a woman is triggered in her day-to-day life while she's pregnant, and she hasn't had the opportunity to resolve her trauma, then her body is in a state of, it's called hyperarousal. So, she might have her heart rate increase. She might have adrenaline, cortisol flowing through her body. And so if she's carrying a child, the child is going to be absorbing some of that stress. And, there's a lot of science around the impact, even on a genetic and an epigenetic level, of what can be passed on to the child, hence this idea of intergenerational trauma.
Mhm.
So you've got that kind of biological inheritance from the mother to the child, which makes it really, really important. And then you've got the emotional and the psychological side. So say a woman has had, do you know what I mean by like insecure attachment? So say she hasn't felt met by her caregivers. And so she grows up and then she feels insecure and anxious about whether it's being with her partner or what is my partner going to feel about me when I'm pregnant? You know, is the baby going to love me? And so there's all of these emotional things going on for the woman as well. There might be, you know, depending on the type of abuse, there might be things to do with the birth, of being in a position of powerlessness, of not feeling in control of your body. So there's so many different ways that the woman is potentially at risk of experiencing distress during that time. So then obviously, then when the baby's born, then if the mother is still busy with all of that, there's a chance that she might not be able to fully connect and be fully present with the baby. Now there you're already creating little micro traumas. And
Right.
so, you know, we could talk about it all day, but at the same time, I don't want people to obviously feel paranoid with like, oh, I'm traumatizing my child, because if the love is there, love is the most important ingredient at the end of the day. And if the child feels that love and care, you know, that's the most important ingredient. So yeah, so from the beginning of the child's life, there's so many different types of things that may result in a level of distress. But obviously there are things that then counter that. So having good relationship, good friends with siblings, people at school, teachers, people that you are meeting in clubs and hobbies and things. There's a lot of good, positive experiences that can also really have a huge impact as well.
How do we break this intergenerational curse, I guess?
Yeah, well, that's the best question of all, Natasha, because that's why I get out of bed in the morning, because I really feel that supporting the women to feel really, to have like a wraparound service as soon as she gets pregnant, right through to the end of, you know, the baby's second year or something, which is kind of the perinatal stage. In the research that I did, I kind of came up with a community vision of what is required. So in terms of government funding and investment, that is the key period of the life of any you know, community, really, is what is going on for the woman, to support the woman from the moment that she's pregnant, to have consistency and continuity of care through her pregnancy, to feel that she can be acknowledged with her experiences, to have sympathetic midwives and health visitors who understand if there are extra needs that she might have, who understand how the past may be affecting her present, to then refer her to agencies like ourselves who are doing trauma-specific work to help heal the past so that they're not carrying that through. Then obviously support through the birth process. And, you know, birth is a huge experience in itself. And then obviously once the child is born, the community takes over and you have, you know, parent groups, baby massage, mother and toddler groups, everything that is allowing the woman to feel that she has a sense of belonging, that she matters, and that she has the support that she needs. Now, look, I know that this is kind of a utopia to expect that the governments to just drop everything and provide that. But, you know, these are the kind of the levels of change that to me are really, really important. And so what we're doing with the trauma work is actually addressing the root cause of issues for people. So rather than looking at, oh, right, so you have an addiction, right, you have an eating disorder, let's manage that and let's deal with that and, you know, see you as being an addict or whatever. we are all about looking at, well, what happened to you, not who you are and what have you, what are you presenting with us today, but what has happened to you. And so it may seem dramatic to call it trauma. You might not want to call it that, but anything that may be affecting us today, the way that we are in relationships, the way we feel about ourselves, and that is really, really important. If it, a lot of people who've experienced trauma feel that somehow they were to blame or that they were deserving of it. And so it's just deconstructing all of those narratives and helping them to feel, actually, that happened to me, but it is not who I am.
What challenges do you often see in your clients who have experienced childhood trauma, and how do you address these counseling sessions? I know that we may be, they all go through different path or different situation, but how do you address their challenges? Let me repeat that question. What challenges do you often see in your clients who have experienced childhood trauma, and how do you address in your counseling session?
Well, so the research that I did was looking exactly at that. What challenges do these clients face? So the title of my research, the thesis, was what happens when the abused child becomes a mother? And so it's looking at...
Are you a team leader who feels overlooked despite your capabilities and efforts? Do you experience anxiety before important networking opportunities, struggling to forge meaningful professional relationships? Does the fear of appearing inauthentic or pushy in networking settings hold you back? Introducing the Networking Powerhouse Acceleration Program, a transformative 12-week journey designed exclusively for team leaders like you who want to gain recognition, confidence, and notoriety through masterful networking. We understand the pain of attending countless networking events and still feeling invisible. Our program offers personalized strategies that make you stand out and be remembered, including sessions that will provide you with the tools to approach any networking scenario with confidence, turning anxiety into anticipation. We teach you how to effectively follow up and nurture professional relationships, transforming contacts into valuable allies, eradicate your fear of being ignored. We equip you with the skills to leave memorable impressions that keep you on the radar long after the first meeting. Fear of not fitting in? Learn to navigate diverse professional environments effortlessly, ensuring you always belong. Fear of inauthenticity? Master the art of authentic engagement, allowing your true self to shine through every interaction. Ultimately, become a networking powerhouse. This program isn't just about networking. It's about revolutionizing the way you connect with the world. By the end of 12 weeks, you won't just attend events, you'll command them. You'll not only meet peers, you'll profoundly connect with industry leaders. Transform your network to open doors to opportunities you've only imagined. Join us and turn your networking efforts into a strategic asset that propels you and your career forward. Spots are limited. Secure your place in the Networking Powerhouse Acceleration Program today and start your journey to notoriety and success. Contact us now to reserve your spot and take the first step towards becoming an undeniable force in your industry. Woman Up.
Different aspects of that. So I interviewed 8 women to find out exactly what you're asking, Natasha. And so I was able to kind of get themes of what was common between all of them. So one of the main things was not feeling safe in the world. So if you've experienced hardship or distress, it's hardwired in your system to expect bad things to happen again. And that is the legacy of trauma. Yeah. So you're kind of, your glass is half empty rather than half full. And you have that real reticence about really fully embracing life. So then their identity as a woman, so feeling, like I was saying, this sense of badness, this sense of a lack of self-worth is really, really important, that they feel somehow flawed or broken in some way because they've been through these experiences. So then the third theme was about their sense of being a mother. So feeling that they don't want their experiences to be repeated with their children. So it's almost like a fear of their children being harmed by others or even by themselves. And also a sense of, conflict within them in terms of wanting to be there for their children, but still dealing with their own mental health issues. So it's like trying to find the balance between being a nurturing mother, but also honoring that they have their own healing to do. And then the last area that came up was to do with this attachment, being in relationships, feeling that either they can't trust, like that they are unlovable, that they can't trust that they are loved. And, or the other extreme is the kind of more the avoidant attachment, which is like, I'm not going to let anyone in. Yeah, the door is closed. And so that causes obviously issues in relationship and partnerships if they feel that they have to be self-reliant and look after themselves and be independent. So there's a lot of different challenges for someone. And that's just, I'm sure, the tip of the iceberg. But in order to address that, that's kind of what the program is all about, by supporting them to heal the trauma in their bodies and help them to release that. Then you're looking at what that feels like. It's almost like I was saying about the sun, they see themselves and feel themselves in a different way because the trauma is no longer dominating or the most predominant factor. So that's the first piece of work. Then obviously you're going to be looking at helping them to trust what they feel and how they are, how they feel about their baby, how they feel as a mother. And what this tends to do is it brings out of them the love. And so, as I said before, love is the key ingredient because they don't want a repeat of the past. What I have found generally is there's this fierce determination and protection of the child that comes out that, and you can go, look at you, look at this. You have this inherent love. Once you kind of put the trauma to one side, that kind of natural feeling comes up for them. And so the other part of what I'm saying now is to do about developing their strengths, to be able to see, who they are in their essence, what qualities they have, and being able to help them to identify more strongly and value who they are. Mm-hmm. So, and then obviously that helps with the relationships as well.
It's crazy how this challenges spreads into other areas of people's life. From your perspective, what are some misconceptions people have about trauma and its treatment that you wish to correct?
Oh, that's a good question. So, well, people avoid dealing with trauma. And it's interesting that certainly here in the UK, in psychotherapy and counseling and psychology training, there isn't a module on trauma. And, given what we're saying, I feel it should be the absolute foundation of any trauma, of any training, is to look at the causal factors of distress. Yeah. So the fact that trauma is so undervalued for the impact that it has is, to me, a huge area that needs to be corrected. So not to make it all about trauma, but basically to be able to look at a person and to consider, formulation about someone and why they are the way they are. You can't really not consider trauma because it has such an effect on the body, on the nervous system, and that affects obviously sleep, mood, and really how they eat, how they move, how they exercise. Everything is affected by the sensitivity of the nervous system to stress because of an anxiety and depression, and all of that is largely as a result of trauma. So that would be probably the main thing that if I had a magic wand, I would change, is that people actually take the time with really in any mental health or healthcare setting to really understand what is it that's happened to you? What is it that has led you to have those narratives or those beliefs, those behaviors?
So much value. What advice would you give to someone looking to support a friend or even a family member who is dealing with the aftermath of trauma?
So it really does require trauma-specific interventions.
Mm-hmm.
So just counseling. I mean, I've been a therapist for 20 odd years. Of course, it's really important to be able to get it all out, to put it all on the table, express everything, communicate, look at alternative behaviors. Everything like that is really valuable. But the trauma work has to really come first, or at least go alongside normal counseling support. So I don't know why there aren't that many, but I think in the States and Canada, there are more trauma specialists. But over here, I think we're a little bit behind you guys. But that is really key. And because it's not actually hard to deal with it, but it is different. It is more focused on the body. So it is important to find out. And there's organizations, and if you look at the main people over your side of the water that have, kind of our forerunners of trauma, like Peter Levine, Bessel van der Kolk, Stephen Porges, and Gabor Mate, they have loads of information. They all generally have institutions that they're working with. So there's always places where you can find out, and there's loads of things online, lots of books. And there's a lot that you can do in terms of your own understanding, or for the person that you're supporting. There's a lot of psychoeducation about what is trauma, what kicks in, how does it present, different behaviors and different, things in the body can result in pain. And so, finding someone who can actually support with the release of the trauma out of the body then gives you the opportunity to experience life with the sun shining, and the clouds gradually will be dispersed. So I'm so positive about it, and that's why I wanted to talk to you, and just to say it's actually not hard, and it's very liberating and empowering.
Speaking of positivity, that's what you definitely exude, positivity, brightness. I see a big yellow sun around you. But as we are wrapping up, let me ask you this last question, Doctor. What is your legacy? What do you want people to remember you for?
Well, really, it's like that trauma is actually easy to work through, and you can change your life. Like, so many people are just so limited and are so burdened by things that have happened to them. If I could have one thing, is so that people understood that if you get the right help, which obviously we're providing with our service, we can do it. We're doing it online and in the UK. And there's lots of great practitioners certainly over your side, that it is possible to heal trauma and be able to embrace life in full. And I suppose the main thing, if there was one word that's really important to me, is prevention. And that's why I'm working with the women, the young women who are having children. If you get in there early and prevent the passing on of these patterns and behaviors, then that would have a huge impact on society, on the community. It would reduce the cost of mental health problems. So that's a big picture kind of thing. But that's what I'm working towards.
I'm loving that. That is so inspiring. It inspires me a lot. So listen, this was it for today's podcast. I'm so grateful that we've been able to do this. Thank you so much, Dr. Jeanette Williams, for your time. You've been providing a lot of value, and I invite the audience to contact Dr. Williams for more questions. Her contacts, her information will be in the descriptions of this episode. Do not hesitate to reach out to her directly. I want to thank my audience for tuning in. My name is Natasha, your host, and until next time, woman up.
Dance to the rhythm, feel the fire within it. Embracing femininity, breaking through. We win, no more hiding in the shadows. Let your light shine, stand tall, be proud, it's your time to rise. Feel the rhythm in your bones, let it set you free. Afrobeat vibes, celebrating diversity. Strong and fierce, we're breaking down the walls, unapologetically embracing our femininity. Standing tall. Freedom in our hearts, liberation in our souls. Raise your voice, let the whole world know. We're breaking chains, take control. In this Afrobeat anthem, watch us go. Watch us glow. Ooh.